It's MC Noble here. It's DJ Ash Noble. Welcome to the stream that I am now finally able to do. Just bear with me. I've just spotted found a tea bag, little tea bag, just on the floor, the corner of the room. Oh dear. Right. Yes. So yes, we are finally here with the stream, with the big announcement. Now, some of you'll already know this because I've already I updated Facebook and Instagram yesterday. Now, obviously, as I said in the stream a couple of days ago, I was coming away from home, so I said the announcement was going to be maybe a slight delay on YouTube because like I say, I was coming away, so I wasn't obviously able to just directly come live at the time. So I had to sort of wait till I guess I had some time, to do this and to do the announcement, and because it's so big, I wanted I wanted to get it right, wanted to get it good. So this announcement is a biggie for me. This is probably the biggest thing that I have ever done music wise, and to even be given the opportunity to do what I've been doing has been absolutely mind-blowing, and it's something that I've always wanted to do ever since I can't even remember. Like, I know I was young and I know it was an interest of mine, so to think now that something I used to sort of dream about doing years ago has kind of become a reality is just something absolutely mind-blowing. It's out of this world. So for those of you who do follow my social medias, like I say, you will know what's been going on, but you'll know that I've been hinting and teasing that I've been going somewhere every I've been going sort of a couple of times a week, sometimes 3 times a week, variously depending. Now, I've been going somewhere, and I was kind of told not to tell anybody about it because where I've been going, I'd been doing some training, and basically I had to be trained up to do what I'm going to announce in this stream. But if it didn't go right, so for example, if I wasn't picking up the training, if I, because basically I was getting trained and shown how to do and use something. And if I was going to find it too difficult and it wasn't for me, then I wouldn't have been going forward with what I'm going to announce. So if I had announced it before and told all you guys, you would have all got excited. And then it might not have happened because I might not have picked up the training. So I might have just been really bad. And not known really what I was doing, and just shown that maybe this is not the thing for me. So I went on with the intention that I was to keep everything keep it hush. However, I did tell a couple of close friends and family because close friends and family, they sort of matter, and one of my close friends was kind of the person who got me involved with it anyway. So and I did kind of excitedly, drunkenly blurt it out to another friend as well, I think, and not really remembering saying much. But at the time, I just sort of found out that I was going to start doing this training, and when you're just excited and you kind of do want to tell the world, and then you get told actually keep it hush, and then you're thinking, wait, well, I've just told family, I've just told a close friend, and you think oh, so anyway, so I've been going to this place, and I guess the big announcement is I've been training for commercial FM radio. So yes, so the big announcement is I've been trained up for commercial FM radio, but that's not the big announcement as such. The big announcement is I've actually joined forces with a radio station called Hull Kingston Radio, which is a local station in Hull. It's kind of like, it's a small station, but it's a proper FM station, and it's like just dedicated for Hull. So like the news, obviously news, sort of like based around Hull. The weather's obviously the weather from around the Hull area, and you know, the show, all the shows and all the presenters, they're from Hull. So it's all kind of like Hull based. If you go into the advert break, it's adverts for businesses around Hull. It's not necessarily like the big commercial adverts that, you know, that you'd hear on radios like Capital and stuff, because, you know, it's just sort of focusing and basing itself around the Hull area. So I would say probably about maybe 5-6 months ago now, my good friend Leighton the Layman, he went on the training course himself, and he went to train to go on the radio. And there was some positions going where they offer the training. It's just a voluntary thing, but it's like free to volunteer. And if you want to get yourself like into radio, you know, whether you just want to do the training course and then leave it at that, or, you know, it all depends sort of roughly like how well you do. So my good friend Leighton the Layman, he did this about 6 months ago. He went through the training, and he went on to run his own show on the radio station. And there was always like, he was always sort of in talks with me that, you know, like when they run the training again, you know, why don't I come aboard and sort of run the training? And I always wanted to, but, you know, when you sort of think like, you know, like, would I be good enough? You know, is this something I can do? And then due to me being an absolute divvy and getting an email address wrong, and a couple of other things, I actually missed the previous training session for the station. So things kind of just sort of, in some sense, got forgotten about. Then the training was coming up again, so then we was like, well, you know, Noble, do you actually really want to go on this training? And I thought, do you know what, I actually do. And I felt more ready to do it this time than I did last time. So I thought, do you know what, yeah, let's give it a damn good crack. So yeah, so I've been training for commercial radio, and believe it or not, I've only been training for about a week and a half to nearly 2 weeks, which you might think that's not long. And you might think like, you know, like the training must be quite easy if it's not that long. But let me tell you something for now. Like, it's not as easy as like you would think it's going to be. Like you might think it's hard, and then you think if someone, you know, has gone through it in like just over like a week and a half, then you might think it's easy. But it's not easy, trust me. But if you have got some form of like, I guess, like knowledge of kind of like music and sort of like live streaming and broadcasting in itself, you know, you do kind of get a head start. You know, I mean, obviously I throw up these YouTube lives, and, you know, I waffle on and talk and announce things, and, you know, I'm live all the time and I'm talking in front of cameras all of the time. So I do kind of already have that knowledge. But even coming onto radio, it's like so different compared to like doing what I'm doing sat here now. Like, you know, I've come live now, and I could sit here for 2 hours, 3 hours if I wanted it. You know, it wouldn't make a difference. With radio, you've got to be completely down to the timing. So so I'll tell you a bit about it, because you know, it's interesting, and you know, it's always good to learn new skills. So you go into this training room. So it's like the studio that you'd go live in, broadcasting to the radio, to the web, but it's not. So it's like a room. It's just a little bit different. The equipment's a little bit older, but it's more or less the same. You know, the layout is just slightly different in the broadcasting room where you actually go live on FM. But like, in terms of what you do, is still exactly the same. So you go in the training room, and there's like a big mixing desk, so massive mixing desk, and there's a microphone, and there's 3 computer screens. So you've got 3 computer screens. So you've got one that is on your right hand side, and that is where that is like what's known as kind of like a, say, you know, like a general computer. So so you read the weather off it, so you get the weather update. If you find, if you're going to read out any information like regarding an artist or a band, you go on that computer, and that's where you can search up your information. So it just works as like a normal computer as such. So you've got, the website for the Met Office that has the weather on, and then you can just go to Google and, Wikipedia, and you can search up your information regarding musicians. Then you've got the sorry. Then you've got the other two computer screens, and this has the radio broadcasting system on it. It's a program called Myriad, and this is what holds everything. So it holds the jingles, it holds the songs, the idents, the adverts, holds the weather, sort of like jingles. So it basically holds everything, and this is where you can sort of plan, put your show together. And this is also where, if you have a proper show on the radio, this is the room you would come into to put your show together. Or say, for example, you're due to be on, say, Friday night, and something comes up, and you can't make it that Friday. You can say come in on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, and you can pre-record the show, and they'll just air it out on the Friday. So you'd come into this room and you'd pre-record, but it's got like everything on it. So basically, you're working from this Myriad system. So you've got the left-hand side computer screen, which will display like all the cart walls. So it'll display like all the tracks and where all the idents is. And then on the other computer screen, so the one that is sort of like in the middle of the weather one and the ident one, is where you'll kind of see like the rotor of the show that you put together. So it'll be like a list of what's coming up. So say you'll have a track, and then it'll say underneath the track like like adverts, and then you'll know that that's going to be an advert break, blah blah blah. So you're sort of going down this list and reading, and it's like a really interesting thing. So basically, you've got to work like up on towards timing, and it's like a really hard thing. So when you go into the training, you build this show called the Communities Connection. It's just a generic show that they run on like a midday, and you work towards it during the course. And depending on sort of how well you do, putting this show together, is kind of like how quickly you'll get through the course. Like, so for example, like you could go on, you might struggle with a couple of things, but they know you're going to get there, so you might just train for a little bit longer. You might just, you might go in, you might train, you're not necessarily too good, but again, they think you'll get there. So when you get to like the end of the course, they'll maybe record you the show rather than putting you live. So you've got two options depending on how well. So if if you're doing like really well, and they're really impressed with you, and they think that you would you'd nail it out the park going live, they'll say, when you feel ready, come in and you'll go live at midday. The guy who trains you, Pete, he sits in the studio with you, so he's just there to kind of like just check that you're doing everything right, because when you're on air, it's like, you've got to literally be down to the time. And if you do anything wrong, like you don't even put a fader up like as far as it's meant to go, or just fader a little bit too low, or you just forget to press one button, you can just completely ruin whatever you're doing live. So he comes in and he sits and he watches you live. But for me, that was probably what made it the more nerve-wracking, knowing that he's kind of like in there. It's one of them things where like someone's watching over you, and it just gives you that like little bit more nerves. But at the same time, like, I understood why he obviously did it. Like, he wasn't just going to put someone live for the first time, and walk out of the studio and, sit and have a coffee and read the newspaper. This is like a big deal. They're going live on FM. He's going to obviously want to watch over them. So anyway, so you're building towards this show called the Communities Connections. So when you first go in, you start simply by reading the weather and announcing the intro to your show. So when you come in, so you'll always come in and start a show on the hour. So the next guy, so the guy who was on before you, he's finished his show, he brings the news in, and then at the end of the news, you read the weather. So the news, you don't have to read that. It goes to the international BBC, you know, goes over to like mainstream news. So you bring the weather in, and then you announce your show. So when you do the training, you start off by reading the weather, and you announce your show, and then basically once you pick that up, when you're confident at doing that, then you move on to the next part of your show, which is the What's On guide. Now, the What's On guide all depends really on how good you are at reading. Now, I sort of did the weather really well, so I sort of picked that up quite quick, nailed it out of the park, and then he was kind of like, right, when you come in next week, What's On guide. And this is where I kind of thought, I think this is where I'm going to fail, you know, because I hate reading at the best of times. So I went in anyway, and it actually, to be fair with you, it's easier than like you think it's gonna be, but it's just quite nerve-wracking when you think you've got all these like paragraphs to read. But with the What's On guide, you get 5 minutes to read them all out, so it's, you know, it's quite good. And once you get the general idea of what you've got to read, you can just sort of skim through it, and you can sort of change words, and you can sort of make it your own. So it's not as such about just reading exactly what's in front of you. It's kind of like reading, as long as you've got the basics and you explain exactly, you know, what the guide actually is, and, you know, some of the key points that are sort of like written down for you, you know, you'll do all right, you know. So you can sort of like improvise, and it does sound better if you improvise. So for example, you have to read out these trails in Hull. So there's the so you've got this trail where you learn about the Second World War. There's a fish trail and there's a blue plaque trail. So if you get the key points about them, you can sort of like improvise, like get yourself on the show. There was one, so in the first one, it describes that the you know, that you see a building on the trail that was it was involved in the Second World War. So you can sort of improvise there, and, you know, sort of in some sense make it sound a bit more exciting. So you can be like reading it, and you can be like, so there's actually a building that was involved in the World War that you can actually see for yourself. So it's not just a case of reading what's on the sheet. And then once you've done that, you basically go on to the next bit, which is just basically like the next part of the show. And then when you more or less get to the end of the show, that's when you've more or less got through the course, and then you just sort of like have a practice run where you go through the show from the start to the end. So every time you like do a new bit, you go from the beginning, you go up to the new bit. Do you know what I mean? But when you're practicing, you're just practicing the new bit on its own. But then when you've sort of like picked it up, you go from the beginning, so from the weather, you go all the way through. And every time you do it, right up until the end of the course, you get the same songs. So they start you off with this tune, Giorgio Moroder, Phil Oakey, Together in Electric Dreams. It has a 40-second intro on the song before like any vocals come in. So that means that you can talk over the vocal, you can announce your show, and you've got to like plug the social medias for the station. So, you know, like the Twitter, the Facebook, where you can follow them, and all of that kind of stuff. So obviously, so you do that. But then once you've gone through the course, they actually make you go through the show again, but they change some of the tracks up, and they kind of, you know, get you prepared and tell you what you have to do. If you're starting the show with a song that has a shorter intro, so sometimes if the show is a shorter intro, you just cut one of the socials out. So for example, you might drop the email and just say the Twitter and Facebook if you're not on, as you know, if you're on a bit of a short time. If the track just doesn't have an intro at all, you'll play the track just on its own, and then you'll just announce it after the tune, and you'll just say everything. So all the plugs, welcome the show, say what the track was. So you've got to learn sort of like working with different tunes, and, you know, the show might not always exactly be the same like every time you do it kind of thing in radio. You might get a song that just doesn't have an intro at the start, so you've got to think like, right, how am I going to introduce this show then? So obviously, you play the track first and then you introduce it. But like, if anything, it's just a really good sort of like training course to get yourself under, and it definitely builds on like confidence, communication skills. You might think it's easy because you just sat there in a room almost like you're talking to yourself, but it's definitely a lot different to that. And when you go live, like, because to be honest, before I went live, I was thinking it's not going to be that nerve-wracking because you just sat in a room talking to a mic, and because even when you go live like this, like I see myself, I see the amount of viewers, when you do it on radio, it doesn't tell you how many people are listening, and it doesn't, so it doesn't even as such feel like you're live. And well, that's what I was thinking. And then when it comes to actually broadcasting and going live, it is like so nerve-wracking. Like, I was reading the What's On guide, my hand was shaking. Like, it is so nerve-wracking. It's crazy how different it is actually going live. But I would recommend definitely doing it. Like, if you do want to get in sort of like involved in something musically, it's good to put it under your belt, and it's good to say that you've done it, or you can do it, or again, even if you don't necessarily want to maybe go for station, you've got the skills, and you are able to broadcast, and you never know, you might get scouted or picked up by another station where you would actually go on another station instead. But the station is a good, because it's a local community station. It's good to get yourself with them. It's good to get yourself working voluntarily, and learn the knowledge. And it opens your eyes. Like, you sit there and you listen to other people on radios. Like, you drive around and you put Capital on and you put Viking on, and you think, do you know what, this is so easy, I could do this. And then you go into the studio and you start learning about how what goes on behind the scene, and you realize like how much harder it is, because people who don't, like, people who I don't like, normal builders, plumbers, they sit there and listen to radio and they think like, oh, this is easy, this isn't a proper job, blah blah blah. But you go into the studio and you do realize how actually like hard and challenging that it actually is. So everyone used to get invited to pirate radio studio. Oh, I'm sure they did, Lee, man. I'm sure they did. But there is a lot of like, and timing is the most important thing in radio, because if you don't bring that news in directly on the hour, because it's going to international news, it has to do. So if you're not there to do that, or you do that wrong, or you don't put it in at the right time, so even if you're coming up to like 10 to, and that your songs are going to last longer than 10 minutes, you've got to change them songs and find something so you're not overrun. So you can get to the end of your show and you think, right, this song is too long, so I need to find a song that's going to be exactly 2 minutes and 55 seconds. Or like, it doesn't matter if you're like, say, 2 seconds out, but if you are, say, like a minute out, you can't have it. You can't have that minute sort of like overrun for the news. So like, if you've got 2 seconds to spare, that's all right. Like, you don't have to get it like directly dead on, but you just cannot be overrun. You've got to bring that news in at that time. So if you have to find shorter tracks that essentially will just be shorter tracks, to fill in that time, because essentially, like, say if you're like underrun by say 2 minutes, you're not going to talk for 2 minutes on radio. As much as I can do it for 30, an hour on a YouTube live stream, on radio it's completely different. So you have got to find like just a song to fill in that time, but it's just, honestly, it's an amazing thing to learn. It really is. And to say that I've actually come aboard onto commercial radio it's just crazy. It's always something that I've wanted to do, And I remember many years ago, and I would only be a kid. It'd be around 2010 time, when my mum and my old her old partner, he had a pair of vinyl decks, and he had them set up at my mum's at the time, and there was like there was two turntables, there was a 2-channel mixer in the middle, and basically, to cut the story short, he had a microphone. So what I used to do is I used to go onto the decks. I used to put the tunes on, the vinyl records on one of the decks, and I used to pretend that I was on the radio. And I always remember, because there was a white labelled vinyl record of Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, and I always used to be on the radio, and I said, we've got this, we've got Billie Jean coming up, and I used to pretend that I was on the radio, and I even recorded one once on my phone, where I just basically played music, and then I pretended there was adverts coming in. I always used to pretend about it, and then obviously when I did get more like professional with the music, I did used to do like online radio stations, which again they're a lot different to commercial stations. You're not to an actual time. You don't have to bring the news in, say whatever. You just go. You go on online radio, and you just mix like you would on a Facebook Live. But I've always had some form of interest with radio. So when I got the opportunity to do it, it was kind of like, it was so exciting to do. So I went through the course, and yesterday I actually went live on FM radio. Now you're probably thinking, well, if you've already been live, like, why didn't you make this announcement before? Why didn't you say you're going to be going live now? They actually tell you not to. So, because basically, the more people that watch, the more nerve-wracking and the more nervous you're going to get. You're going live for the first time. So if you start telling like loads of people, like loads of friends, and every Tom, Dick and Harry, they're all going to listen in. And then, they're going to see, like, because, you are bound to make a couple of mistakes. It's your first time going live. You might just not pull a fader up right, or you might just press the wrong button just by accident. And I did right at the end of my show. I had a tune playing, and basically I was just it had a bit of an intro, so I was just, thank you for listening, blah blah blah, and then I was supposed to just put my mic fader down, but because I was announcing a goodbye, I got it in my head that I had to like click a button and stop, because like when you normally finish a live, like say YouTube, Facebook, you click like end the stream. So I got like that in my head, and I tapped the go button. So obviously, when you tap the go button, it actually skips the song and it goes on to the next thing. So I just made that little error right at the end. It was just a slight error, easily made, but it happened. And these things do happen. You're going live for the first time. So if you've told all your friends and family that you are going to be going live, then obviously, it's going to be more nerve-wracking for you. So I told a couple of close friends, I told a few family members, just in case, so they could lock in. But if I went and announced it on Facebook, there'd be like there'd be like a good few, maybe even 100 people that would have locked in. Would have made it more nerve-wracking. And some of them, they won't understand like how radio works, so they'll think, oh, I'll text him and tell him he's doing great, and then your phone will be pinging, and then you can't respond to these messages, and it would confuse you. You'd get more nerve-wracked, and it would make you more nervous. So they said, don't tell anybody that you're going live, and then it won't be as nerve-wracking for you. So there we go. So yeah. So the big announcement was commercial radio. It's a huge announcement. And there's been so many times I've come live, I've teased things on Facebook, and I've just wanted to say what's happening, and because I knew myself it was good, and you know you're all there scratching your heads like, what, you know, what is Noble's big announcement? What is coming? What is he doing? And no one guessed commercial radio. So I put it on Facebook, and right now it's had nearly, I think it's had just over 230 likes, and the amount of comments it's had from people saying congratulations and well done, it's just mind blowing. You know, it's at a time like this when you really find out like who supports you and who has your back, because this is like, you know, one of the biggest, well, this is the biggest thing that I have ever done musically wise. So to get so many people's support, like just to saying well done, and you know, just to congratulate you, and you know, I acknowledge you're there, is just amazing. Because sometimes I'll post like a gig where I'm playing somewhere, and sometimes, you know, it'll get maybe all of 8 likes, and you know, get a couple of comments from a few people that are relevant in, you know, the time, and you know, they're maybe going to the gig itself, so they'll just leave a comment. But then if you're going somewhere where they're not going, like it, you know, then it doesn't really interest them, and you know, they don't see the need to comment. But again, with something like radio as well, you've got to watch out for people that will sort of like, you know, well done, and you know, try to sort of like be like a really close friend to you, for their own gain. So like for example, like I put my post up, and you know, I've already had like comments, and you know, "Oh, if ever you want an interview, or you know, if ever you want any tunes, you know," so people that are trying to think, right, it's going on radio, this is the chance for me to get my songs played on radio. But what people have got to understand is that this is a you know, proper commercial FM, you know, station. So if someone's made their latest hardcore bootleg, like the chances of me getting to play that on the FM radio is like very, very thin. I mean, like I know my good friend Lee, he does a show called The Big Saturday Night, and he plays like all the bangers and floor fillers. Sometimes towards the end, he does just take his show like just a little bit harder, and he does sometimes play like maybe one hardcore track towards the end and a bit of D&B, you know, and he goes into a bit of like bass line and stuff. But you know, it's not a full orientated show, you know, of obviously like you know, like hardcore tunes and bounce tunes. So I can't go on there and do the bounce hour. Do you know what I mean? It's not something that is quite possible, you know, for me to do. You know, it's not a station that's orientated for that. It's like, you know, you can go like dance and commercial dance, you know, 90s classics, and you know, you can play like a few dance and trance tunes that, you know, did happen to make it into the charts, and stuff like that. But you know, if you start going on and doing, you know, playing Rob IYF and Squad E tunes, like it's not something you can do. Sort of people, you know, they come on and they think they can comment, and you know, it'll be a chance for them to get their tunes aired on radio. Like, you know, that's not sadly how it goes. Now interviews, you know, I can probably possibly do interviews in like the future, but you've got to be careful with interviews, because you're putting somebody sort of onto radio that maybe hasn't totally been trained on what to say. And you know, there's a lot of things that you can't say on radio. I was given a booklet, over 15 pages of words that you can't say on radio, and believe it or not, there's like words that you're not allowed to say that you would think like, what, you can't say that. But there is just like so many words that you cannot say. Like obviously, as people will know and will be aware, you know, you can't obviously swear. That's like a big sort of, you know, that's a big no-no. Like, you know, you can't say the F words, and you know, the P words and the B words. But even things as such as what people class as not swear words, but like rude words. So you can't say things like God. You can't talk about anything, you know, you can't go political, so you can't talk about anything political, you can't talk about anything to do with religion or racism. There's so many words and things that you cannot say, and you cannot talk about, and some of the words can throw you off as well, because there'll be like some words that, for example, that you can't actually say, but then there's like other meanings that use the same word that like isn't actually rude. So for example, like there is an S word that's a racial word, but it can actually be someone's name as well. So then you think like, well, what if I interviewed a guy called this name, but are you allowed to say it? What's that, Dad? So but there we go. That's the huge announcement. So yeah, what can I say? So I'll update you more when I know more. So I go back in a couple of weeks, and it's to start talking about putting this show together. I'm not gonna reveal anything yet as to what the show's gonna be. I've got a vague idea of what we've been talking about. I like the idea. It's different to something that I've ever done before. So it does take me out of my comfort zone of tunes I know and love. But I will get a chance to play some songs that I do like as well. But it's going to be challenging, mind blowing. So just keep an eye out. All I can say is keep an eye out, and keep yourself peeled. Because in a couple of weeks I'll know a little bit more. But for now, I've gone through the training. If training does come up, or I think it's still going on, I think you maybe still can apply. I'll find out. If anyone does want to get involved, get yourself involved. Get on the training. Have a go. It might be. You might not think it's for you. Might end up being for you. It's free to train. It's free to go on. So just literally give it a go. So there you go. So like, comment, share. See you soon. Boom. Everything.